Jemiah was a woman on a mission, and not just any mission. She was a realtor, yes, but she saw her work as something bigger. It was about finding more than just houses for people. It was about finding homes, places where families could build their dreams, places where laughter could echo in the hallways. She drove through the streets of her city, her eyes scanning every block. She was looking for a special kind of property today. A fixer-upper for her client, a young couple eager to put their own stamp on a place. Jemiah knew the potential hidden beneath old floorboards and peeling paint. She believed in the power of transformation. This particular search felt different, though. The market was tough, and the good deals were snapped up in an instant. Jemiah felt a pull, a quiet voice inside her, telling her to look beyond the pristine listings. She steered her car away from the popular neighborhoods, venturing into areas that others often overlooked. She believed that every community held a story, a gem waiting to be polished. She wasn't just looking for a property with good bones for her client. She was searching for a place with heart, a place that was calling out for a second chance, much like so many of us are. It was this deep-seated belief in renewal that guided her every single day. Jemiah had built her career on a foundation of empathy. She understood the weight of a front door key. She knew it represented security, stability, and the start of a new chapter. For her, a sale was never just a transaction. It was a sacred trust between her and her clients. She felt the weight of their hopes and the lightness of their joy. As she navigated the quiet, tree-lined streets, she sent out a little prayer. A prayer to be led to the right place. Not just the right house for a quick sale, but the right opportunity to make a real, lasting difference in someone's life. The afternoon sun cast long shadows as she turned down a street she had never explored before. It was lined with modest homes, some neatly kept, others showing the wear and tear of time. She was looking for that spark of potential, that flicker of what could be. Her client trusted her completely, giving her the freedom to find something truly unique. Jemiah took that trust seriously. It was a responsibility she carried with grace and determination. She knew that the perfect place was out there. She just had to be open enough to see it when it appeared, even if it wasn't what she expected. And then, she saw it, tucked away at the end of a quiet cul-de-sac, almost swallowed by the world around it. It was a small house, barely visible behind a thick curtain of overgrown ivy and tangled vines. The paint was peeling in long, sad strips, and the front porch sagged like a heavy sigh. To anyone else, it would have looked abandoned, a forgotten relic left to crumble. It wasn't on any of her official listings. But something about it called to Jemiah. A powerful, unexplainable force pulled her in. It was the kind of feeling you get when you know you are exactly where you are supposed to be. She parked her car and stepped onto the cracked sidewalk, the silence of the street settling around her. The air was still. The house looked as though it was holding its breath, waiting. Cautiously, Jemiah made her way up the broken pathway, pushing aside thick leaves that clung to the siding. The front door was slightly ajar, a small crack that seemed like an invitation into its hidden story. She felt a mix of curiosity and a strange sense of reverence. This was more than just a neglected property. She could feel a profound sadness emanating from its very walls, a story of struggle that was still being lived. With a gentle push, the door swung inward with a low, mournful creak. The air that greeted her was heavy and damp, thick with the smell of dust and despair. Sunlight struggled to pierce through the grimy windows, casting weak, hazy beams across the cluttered room. Piles of old clothes and discarded items were scattered everywhere. It was clear this was not an empty house. It was a house filled with hardship, a place where hope had seemingly been lost. Jemiah's heart, which had been full of professional purpose just moments before, now filled with a deep, aching concern for whoever was inside. She took a slow, deliberate step into the living room, her realtor's eye momentarily shutting off. The professional part of her brain that calculated square footage and renovation costs went silent. All she could see was the evidence of a life being lived in the most difficult of circumstances. It was a scene of profound neglect, but not of abandonment. Someone was here. Someone was calling this broken place home. And in that moment, Jemiah's mission changed completely. This was no longer about finding a fixer-upper for a client. It was about discovering the truth hidden within these walls. As her eyes adjusted to the dim light, she saw them. In the far corner of the room, huddled on a stained, threadbare mattress on the floor, was a young woman. She couldn't have been much older than 20. She was holding a small child, a little boy, wrapped tightly in her arms. The mother's face was etched with exhaustion and fear, her eyes wide as she stared at Jemiah, a stranger who had just walked into her fragile world. The little boy, who looked to be about 2 years old, was quiet, his small face pressed against his mother's chest. He wasn't crying. He was just still, as if he understood that silence was his only shield. Jemiah's breath caught in her throat. The sight pierced through her, straight to her soul. She saw not a squatter or a trespasser, but a mother. A mother doing everything in her power to protect her child in an impossible situation. The room was cold, and the only food in sight was a half-empty box of crackers on a crate next to the mattress. There was no electricity, no running water. Yet, in the midst of this overwhelming poverty, there was an undeniable bond of love. The way the mother held her son, the gentle way she stroked his hair, it was a testament to the strength of the human spirit. An overwhelming wave of empathy washed over Jemiah. She saw her own mother in this young woman's weary eyes. She saw her sisters, her friends, herself. She understood the systemic injustices that could lead a person to this desperate place. This wasn't a story of failure. It was a story of a system that had failed this family. Jemiah knew she could easily turn around, walk out, and pretend she had never seen this. She could call the authorities and report the situation, washing her hands of it. The easy path was to walk away and continue her search for a house she could sell. But Jemiah stood frozen, her heart breaking for the silent pair in the corner. She saw the vulnerability of the toddler, whose world was confined to this one cold, dark room. She saw the quiet dignity of the mother, who, despite her fear, did not look away. In that shared gaze, an unspoken understanding passed between them. It was a moment of pure, raw humanity that transcended their circumstances. Jemiah knew with every fiber of her being that she could not turn her back. This was no longer a house. It was a sanctuary of survival, and she had just been invited in. The choice before Jemiah was crystal clear, yet incredibly difficult. One path was simple: retreat, make a phone call, and let the system handle it. That was the path of professional distance, the one that kept her life uncomplicated. It would allow her to get back to her job, to find that perfect fixer-upper for her client, and to collect her commission. It was the logical choice, the one that made business sense. But her heart was screaming at her, telling her that the logical choice was not the right one. Not today. Not for this mother and her child. Her spirit knew better. She took a deep breath, the air still thick with hardship, and she made a different choice. She chose compassion. She chose humanity. Slowly, so as not to startle them, she lowered herself to her knees, creating a bridge of empathy instead of a wall of judgment. "My name is Jemiah," she said softly, her voice gentle and calm. "I'm not here to hurt you. I'm here to help." The young mother watched her, her expression slowly shifting from pure fear to a flicker of cautious hope. A single tear traced a path down her cheek, a silent release of the immense pressure she had been carrying all alone. In that moment, the house transformed once more. It was no longer just a neglected structure or a scene of despair. It became a vessel of hope, a place where a second chance was about to be born. Jemiah didn't have all the answers. She didn't know exactly what the next steps would be, but she knew she had to start somewhere. She reached into her purse and pulled out her phone, but not to call the authorities. Instead, she called a friend who ran a local shelter, a friend who understood the power of a helping hand. She chose to connect this family with kindness, not with bureaucracy. This discovery changed Jemiah forever. It reaffirmed her belief that her purpose was so much greater than selling properties. It was about building community, about lifting others up, and about seeing the person behind the circumstance. The vine-covered house, once a symbol of neglect, became a symbol of justice and redemption. Jemiah didn't just find a fixer-upper that day. She found a family to fix up, a life to change. And in doing so, she reminded us all that the most valuable thing we can ever offer another human being is hope.